Hi Sarah, good afternoon.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Here we are for our Chaplains Chatter, and we're on the first week of our Busy Persons Retreat. So thinking about the theme of this week, which is opening up, but in particular, opening up to creation. So opening up to nature, opening up to creation. So just to start with, how important is this theme for you?
Well, I was really pleased when I heard from Joe that we had these different themes, and that the one that I got to chat on was creation, because it's sort of everything really. My feelings about creation have been with me since I was a tiny child. So
Go on, just say a bit more about that. That's interesting. So what do you mean about your feelings about creation?
So some of my earliest memories are of being I think quite a lot of people have this, but when that child's feeling of suddenly I belong in this world. So I can remember when I was about 7 or 8, I was lucky. I was allowed to walk across some fields on my own that were near a place where we lived, and I can remember this feeling in the fields of just I'm not separate from this. I'm part of this, and it's all good. It's a great feeling to have.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And has that sort of continued all the way through your life?
It's always continued. I've never not felt part of it. I'm always surprised when I hear people trying to make that distinction between humans and nature, or people being surprised and say, well, actually we are just animals, because I've always been very clear that we're all part of the same living, beautiful, extraordinary thing.
And has that changed at all in the last, has your sense of creation around changed at all in the last year as we've gone through this very different time? Has it been important to you in a particular way, or?
Yes, yes, I suppose it's been such a long year, hasn't it? It's quite hard to think back, but I think as in other difficult times in my life, and I've certainly found lockdown difficult at some points, I've been able to lean into nature. And again, I'm lucky with where I live now, because I have very visible, beautiful creation, very accessible to me. So in the first lockdown, these regular walks in very beautiful places, because of course it was this time of year again, we were going into that primroses, daffodils, wild garlic, bluebells. There's this wonderful sort of stripy thing that happens in this part of Gloucestershire with these colours. And I think when we all felt, well, I'll speak for myself, but when I felt this huge uncertainty, what is happening, what is going on, where is this going to end? Are we safe? Are we not safe? How do we live in this? I think this thing that, well, here are the primroses, and they've been here every year, and they're still here. And oh, look, here's the wild garlic coming up again. So it was something to lean on that was a sort of surety.
Yeah, and it always feels that, and I think that's really important. It feels like there's something bigger here than just our human concerns, which in the whole space of time of sort of creation are relatively small. And it's the same sort of feeling you get if you go to the top of a mountain or you look out at the sea, and you may have all sorts of stuff going on in your head, but suddenly you're no longer quite so significant in it all as you thought. But actually, that feels a bit freeing, doesn't it? Somehow.
I think that's the most wonderful relief to be to feel that feeling that I'm just a speck, no more, no less important than anybody else or any other living thing, but just part of it, and also that in some way it will go on regardless of what I do or think. Or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
it's a
you
really,
get the same feelings as like if you're by a river and you just watch that movement and the sense that this is just going to keep coming, this water. Yeah. Have there been other times in your life when it's been important to be connected with nature, particularly, or creation?
um, so, lots of different times. I mean, my sort of which one shall I share? I mean, that feeling that we've just been talking about of oh, I'm just a tiny part of this huge thing. I really got that reinforced when I travelled in Canada and had this big wild river trip um, in northern Canada on the Yukon, which is a really true wild experience. Um, and in fact, they say about the Yukon, and I'm sure this is true, that if you live and travel on that river, we were canoeing, your blood pressure goes down because the nature is so. I'm sure that's the same in other parts of nature as well, but one could feel that. And actually, we had a day. We had a day on that river where I was canoeing with my husband Dan, and we actually sat in the canoe. We put our paddles down,
Yeah.
and we looked at these huge pine trees and these mountains and this wide river and this turquoise water that had come down from the mountains, and eagles flying past us. And we cried, but we cried because there was nowhere else to go with it, because it was so. And it's as if the tears were almost. I mean, maybe it sounds a little bit kind of fey, but they're like the river. The whole thing was a sort of a one.
Yeah.
It's like couldn't get better than that, really.
Yeah.
And the other surprise that I had in that environment is that I'd been very, very frightened about that trip, because I knew that I was going to this wilderness, and even the satellite radio might not work, and if you broke a leg, you relied on a helicopter, that sort of thing. And so there was a lot of fear for me around doing it. But actually, once I was immersed in that sort of grandeur of creation, the fear completely went. And I think that was because of feeling part of it. It felt, oh, this is where we're meant to be.
Yeah.
How it's meant to be, and it's not frightening at all.
Did you feel held in some sort of way, or?
Well, that was part of it. This is where we're meant to be, and
Yeah.
God is, God is just more accessible, more visible, more feels closer in this hugeness. Yeah.
And has it always, has that sense of nature or creation always had that sort of spiritual side for you, or does it have that? Is that, does it feel like that's always part of it for you?
I think so. I think that I mean, every day one only has to look out of the window to be amazed, to be gobsmacked, really, by what is made and what is presented to us. So I think that during my life, that's sometimes been a shorthand or a shortcut to God. Should I be forgetting about God, not thinking about God, not feeling close to God? I think to look outside, or to really to look at a yew tree and see how it stays green in our environment through the year, or to look at the amount of pebbles that you get on a beach sometimes. It's such a fast way to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's much greater than usness that is all around.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love sunrises and sunsets, and the bits just before and afterwards, and that, as you say, just looking out of the window, it's so, particularly at this time of year when you can see, and during the darker months when you can see them more, because they're more when we're around, and that's that sudden connection with both the rhythm and also the beauty, and then sort of taking you through that. Yeah. Thank you. I'm wondering if, just thinking about this, opening up to creation, opening up to the sort of spiritual meaning within it, if there are things that can help us go deeper in that, if you like, because we can have a connection with creation in all sorts of ways, But if in terms of our sort of spiritual life and our faith, there are ways that we can sort of deepen that connection with God. Through, is there anything that you found helpful, or particular places or things you've done that sort of somehow helped you with that in connection with creation?
Mm. Well, um, I think it's such a simple thing to say. It's such a small thing to say, but it's quite a big thing to let ourselves do, to just be and just breathe and just feel what is around us. So I can remember, so for an example, I can remember I was at a very crowded camping event, not sort of almost a festival, it's a little festival thing, 2 or 3 years ago. And I'd been on this campsite with quite a lot of people for 3 or 4 days. And I knew I really needed some time on my own. And I couldn't quite articulate why, or what for, but I knew I needed time on my own. It's quite hard to extract myself. And I went for a little walk, and I found on a footpath a tree. I don't know what kind of tree it was. I can't remember. It was a mature tree, so it might have been a beech tree, or it might have been an ash tree. Anyway, it had a branch on it that was very low curved branch against the trunk. So it just said, "Sit here." The tree just said, "Sit here now." And so I sat in this tree, and obviously I didn't have anyone to talk to. I'm a very talky person, so it's easier to be quiet when there's no one there. And I breathed, and closeness to God just comes rushing in for me at that time. Just so there's a sort of combination of letting oneself be there, but also a very physical connection.
I like the I think I've got an echo, sorry, going on, but I like the poem, the Rob Bell poem, and that sense that the bush is always burning, but
Yeah.
we are walking on paths, and
Yeah.
unless you stop, you don't. It's almost like when you stop, you recognize the world within this world. I think he talked about,
Yeah.
always there, or the world that this world is within. Yeah.
I think the thing is that when we stop, we don't have to try. I think often we hear or we feel that we have to try, stop, and then look for the thing, and
Yeah.
and sort of reach and strive to get the thing that's being given to us. But I don't think we have to do that at all.
And I think there's something that I'm trying to get my head around about contemplation, which is the idea that when you contemplate, you might be looking at like I was just down in the park, looking at the lives on the water and the changing patterns. The awareness of God actually comes almost through the state of mind. It's because your state of mind changes and you start opening up to being, but also to sort of being part of, like you were saying, and to enjoying and all that sort of stuff. The very nature of being contemplative, in a way, opens that connection up with something within, which is where we're connected to God. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think maybe one of the things about immersing oneself in creation, or letting, or sort of, standing by the lake or being on the bench and just letting oneself be, is that you get you can get God within and God without at the same time. So we open up to God in us.
Yes.
As you've been talking, and also it's such a blessing because you're seeing beauty or extraordinariness, at least. You get God without at the same time.
There's a line in the prayers that we both sometimes use from Tess Ward, which says, "Be still in the silence and aware of the love with and within," which is that sort of with, around, and within as well, same time. I think you may have frozen, Sarah. This was not a predicted aspect of our conversation. So I'm wondering whether, you're unfrozen. That's perfect.
Didn't hear any of that. You froze. I think you were quoting some lovely Tess Ward.
I was. We both, well, and you froze to me, but there we go. That we were doing exactly what it said He's still in the silence. We were very still. He's still in the silence and aware of the love with and within
Yes.
that life.
Yeah.
So you have this, I mean, I sense in you, and I sense in you when I talk to you normally, that you have this real deep sense of connection with the created world. And does that affect the way you want to live and the way that you think about other things in your life and the way you think about how we humans are and that sort of thing?
I suppose it does. I mean, I'm feeling a bit guilty now because I feel like, I feel that now's the time when I should say that I'm a really, really good environmentalist and get out some good green credentials, but I'm not very good because I suppose I'm a lazy human being that likes the good things in life as well. So I'd like to hear myself saying, well, I'm not going to get back in an aeroplane because I know that we shouldn't fly anywhere. But at the same time, I'm longing to fly anywhere that I can. So I'm not sure about that part, but I think it certainly does affect everything. I mean, I've been very affected this last 2 months by the ash trees being cut down because of ash dieback. So if so I mean, I'm sure, I know it's all over the country, but it seems it's very visible, I think, in Gloucestershire because of our woods. And we have a lot of roads with trees beside the roads. So we're witnessing really old trees that we've known for a long time be cut down, and whole big views are changing and things being revealed with these trees coming down. And I can sort of accept that, and I understand the rationale that the ash trees may possibly be dangerous with the dieback. But what I find really hard to accept is the loss of habitat, and I just see that very visibly. I see groups of birds that are trying to stabilize themselves in funny little bushes or hedgerows because the 6 or 8 trees that they used to roost in have just gone in the last few months, and that's just sort of one tiny part of it. I do find that really painful. So my reaction to that on a small personal level is to not cut anything down again ever. So I think that my garden's going to become quite eccentric now, because it's the only thing I can think of doing really in a tiny way, is just to let stuff grow so that things can live in it.
And to me, I feel that when part of our, we can think our experience of nature or creation is all about how wonderful it is and that connection. But actually, if we're connected to the sense of loss or pain or waste or whatever it might be, that's another sort of connection, it's a real connection. And in a way, the two are indivisible. Once you've got the sense of this amazing bounty and wonder and beauty, then unless you just spend all your time watching wildlife documentaries, if you actually look at real nature, then you see examples where that's not the case, and you feel the pain more deeply. Maybe that's uncomfortable. We don't always want to do that.
Yeah.
And there's a tree just up from where we live, at the back of some houses, where the starlings always used to perch. And then one day the people were cutting it down, and I said, "Well, why are you cutting the tree down?" "Oh, well, I think somebody asked us to, basically. I think somebody owned that land and they didn't want the tree there anymore." And it was just like, gosh, when that's gone, it's gone. Where the starlings are. And I wonder whether that can connect us to perhaps a sense of loss and pain in other ways, because it opens up that bit of us that might acknowledge that. So
Yes, maybe so. Yeah.
So thank you, Sarah. So I thought we might finish by I was going to ask you, just do you have any favorite sort of images or stories from the Bible which are something connected in some way to your sense of creation or to nature and all that it means to you?
Well, I always like wells and water and rivers, and I think I was really glad because you mentioned rivers very early on, and I think as I've got older, rivers have become my sort of top environment really, more than mountains or sea or woods, and and I get very excited by the idea of the River Jordan, and having been to the baptism site on the Jordan side of the River Jordan. So whenever that's mentioned, and it does get mentioned quite a lot in the Bible, I just love that, because I feel that I can see it, and and kind of smell it and taste it, and the heat. It's just such a powerful thing, and the geographical placing of it as well. So that's maybe not one particular bit of the Bible, but
it runs all the way through. In fact, in Genesis, you've got one of the creation accounts, which has the 4 rivers at the beginning. It talks about the 4 rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates and 2 others. And right at the end, at Revelation, you have this there's this image that's in Revelation also early on, I think, about the water flowing out the temple and flowing down and forming this river, and along the banks of the river are the trees, and the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. So that sort of sense of this river all the way through it, which is lovely. Renewing, and wherever the river flows, when it flows from the temple, it will renew the ground there. So maybe we should encourage people to find a river, and I have a particular challenge for small rivers and streams, which I find really helpful, which is see if you can listen to 3 different noises.
Well, that's a great challenge. The
water, and down the stones there, and down the stones there, and over there, and you can't, if you stop, you can hear it, but you have to stop.
Yes, we could suggest that people find any running water, any natural running water, because it can be quite tricky in Gloucestershire, that as well, if in this area when we haven't got that much.
No. So challenge. Great. Thank you, Sarah, very much for sharing with us, and want to hear more about your trip to the Yukon. But that sounds amazing. But great to have that sense of connection, and that deeper connection you have through nature with God. So we'll say bye for now, and I'll stop this recording, and we'll share it with you in a moment.